And welcome to the Earth Art TV podcast. I am your host this week, Richard Schilling, and you'll probably notice that we've been hiding somewhere all summer doing something else. We had much more important things to do. But now the weather's turned to, I was going to swear then, I've already instructed everybody not to swear because that requires a lot of editing. Now the weather has taken a nosedive. It's September. This is what happens where we live in this part of the country. There's snow on the hills. There's water coming up to the back door. We thought it'd be time to start podcasting again. But most importantly, it's because there is, on the Emerald Isle, a fantastic land art festival, international land art festival coming up. It's next week. So, as well as our normal Earth Art TV crew, which is Mark and Rebecca.
Hello!
Hello.
James and Caroline.
Hello.
Hello.
Little delay there. They're obviously somewhere really hot like Thailand or Australia.
If only.
And Julia and myself, Richard.
Hello.
We have a very special guest, the one and only Sean Corcoran.
Hello.
Woo!
That's a round of applause. Come on, round of applause.
Welcome.
Thanks very much.
So what we're not telling you is it's actually midnight, and we were supposed to start at 7:30. But Sean is a very, very busy man organising this festival, so he's fashionably
the two
late.
horses broke out of the field, and then the four dogs started barking at someone going up the road, and then the little kitten we have, of the two cats we have, got out. Our first time ever being outside, so I had to catch the kitten. And then by the time I got in, I noticed that since Miranda and Alfie are away surfing in Donegal today, I noticed that I hadn't done all the washing up, which was piled up in the kitchen. So I just went straight in, started doing the washing up, and now it's 12 midnight, so sorry about that.
Well, I assume this is just a standard issue day in the Corcoran household. This is kind of, standard issue.
Well, I do possess a Google Calendar, which my actual routine things that you have to do in a day are input into it. But I sometimes get distracted and life gets in the way. So it's happened to me before.
I can imagine. Well, we're very pleased to have you with us, Sean. And what we're going to talk about tonight, I think we're just going to have a general chat and a catch up, and we're going to talk to you, Sean, about how you got into this whole thing, how your life led up to this time. Not necessarily doing the washing up, but your life as a land artist, as a sound artist, there on the Copper Coast in the south of Ireland. And then we'll take a break, and in the second part we'll talk all about Talamh and your fantastic second edition of this wonderful festival you've put together with 30 international artists coming from all over the world. And Julia and I are going for the first time this year, so I'm really looking forward to hearing all about that. So I think we're suitably, for the Earth Art TV podcast, completely unprepared as far as having anything interesting to talk about. So,
well,
there's a way to kill it off.
Well, we could debrief the year, right? So the last time I was on a podcast, and Rebecca and I were on a podcast with you, was when we were in Lancashire, and John Foreman was the guest. Mm-hmm. And we were sharing a cottage together and making lots of art in the woods and the rain in the spring. And it was early spring, and it was wonderful.
Very early spring.
And bleak, and I loved it.
Oh, we loved it. We loved it. We want to do it again. Absolutely want to do that again. It was so beautiful up there. It was so great to be together as well, and just go out and be making things and coming back and just being together and being creative. It was really special, actually.
It was.
Yeah, and we made a really nice. Sorry.
That big thing that you guys made just above the path, with the swirly things around trees.
We've dug wood.
Magnus Somnia.
No. This
Dream Big.
Around trees. Yeah.
Dream Big.
That's still there. Still there.
Is it?
Not been disturbed too much. Yeah.
Wow.
Not been up there for a little while, but yeah, we went up and had a look.
Wow.
So
Can't believe it's still there. That's great.
That podcast reminded me of like an episode from the film Whitnail and I. Kind of like something that didn't. It wasn't just like two characters in the wilderness in this little cottage, but it was like all six or actually seven of you, including John. It was kind of very eccentric. You know, here we are huddled together in the little room, and we've been out playing with the moss all day and the sticks, and we're covered in mud and the hands and knees, and it was raining, it was wet, it was muddy, and we all had fun. And now we're in this little cottage, just like a fire.
It was
I
glorious.
mean, it's nice that that came across because that's exactly
I
what
was
it was
going to say
like.
it's fairly accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
It was
felting
pretty,
and doodling as well.
Yeah, how are your slippers, by the way?
But what happened?
Your slippers still
They're
good?
doing good, but I've
Rebecca?
got a new pair of slippers that I'm going to felt. They're,
Oh,
they're
they're-
black. They're black this time.
They're
I've got
very
to get
nice, but they are
felt.
lacking the felting pattern. So
I know.
Yeah.
They look
that was
small.
my highlight, actually, the felting.
Rebecca did make some absolutely glorious felted slippers. Well, added to her original slippers, and in a very
Nice.
good way. Oh, and I've
We
got
made
my
a basket.
basket as
Oh,
well.
that, yeah, the basket.
I
Yeah.
made a basket.
And these are our cooking apples from our apple tree.
Lovely.
Anyway,
So that was Lancashire. And then,
Yeah.
was there any festivals? No, and then there was another podcast in
Yeah,
preparation
yeah.
for the European Land Art Festival with James Craig Page.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So the last time we actually did an episode of this, we had James Page on to talk about his life and how he put it together. So it's kind of nice to bookend bits of the summer with James P and now Sean to talk about the island edition of this mad. How would you describe us lot? This kind of, what can you call it? I can't think of anything. We spent an hour before this setting up microphones and things. So we've kind of, we've talked so
Worn
much rubbish.
ourselves
Yeah,
out.
we've worn ourselves out to have anything interesting to
James
say.
is going to come.
So
James is
this is
coming to
kinda
Talamh,
normal.
isn't he?
He is.
He is.
Sean.
He is.
James,
Yes.
yeah.
Not that James. Not James Brunt. I'm afraid he was there last year. Well, unfortunately, James and Caroline won't be with us this year, and Mark and Rebecca
Not
won't be with us
happening,
this
it's-
year.
Rubbish, but true.
Yeah. So no, but James Craig Page is joining us, along with a couple of others from Scotland. We have got Lawrence Winram, we've got James, and we have. I'm sure my spreadsheet is here somewhere.
Sandor.
You've got Sandor.
That's right, Sandor and Erica and Neil and Caroline and
Yeah.
Sandor is living there. Sandor and Erica are living. Yeah, there's 5 or 6 coming from Scotland at least, which is great, and a few from England. And then apart from that, it's America and Europe, a couple from Europe, and then from Japan is Mayumi Nakabayashi, who actually just lives down the road, but we like to think that she represents Japan.
Sean,
Was-
out of everyone that's coming, is there anything that you're particularly excited about this year? I can imagine you're quite disappointed because the Falls aren't going to be there, the Brunts aren't going to be there. But putting
It's not
aside
going
that
to be
disappointment,
easy, Sean, but you're going to have to try and get
I
through
know.
without us. Sorry.
I mean, I know you've arranged counselling for it, but is there anybody that you're particularly going, wow, I'm really looking forward to seeing them, or anybody that or are you just knackered?
I'm quite calm. I've got 31 people on the spreadsheet, and it kind of shifts up and down. Sometimes it's 32, sometimes it's 33, sometimes it goes back to 30. And I suppose, to be honest, over the last few weeks, I've been kind of living inside the spreadsheet in terms of when people are arriving, when they're leaving, and what any dietary requirements they have, and just kind of working out.
Have you got the chef again?
Oh yeah, we've got Keith Fitzgerald as the chef, and we got the hostel, the Greenway and Copper Coast hostel. So, but to be honest, I haven't got to be out in nature much. I got out yesterday on the sand, but I've been kind of living inside the social media feeds of the other 31 artists in terms of I know all about what Julia is making. I know what Richard is making. I know what Richard's dreams are at the moment, for God's sake. And I've been following everybody's work.
Oh, dear.
Really love what the Forwards did with that spiral. I'm really inspired by the wire or the structure inside that spiral that you wove. So Rebecca weaving
The dragon's tail, the serpent's tail.
Yeah. So stuff like that. It's kind of like, and then somebody yesterday, one of our artists posted up the what are those lovely red buds? The big red buds called.
What rose hips?
Yeah, rose hips. The rose hips are landing on the ground at the moment, which I haven't seen in person. But some of the artists have been like picking those up, and last year I remember Anna Castillo and Mayumi did a lovely piece at the Engine House where they really used those rose hips. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting to spend a bit of time myself out and about for 9 days and 9 nights. Day and night. We're kind of exploring the bit of a nighttime landscape as well now this time, a little bit more than we did last year. And that's not just being in the pub, it's kind of like being out on walkabouts at night time, and plenty of time for chilling out as well, so it's not all go, go, go. It's kind of an artist-led, unlike some of the other festivals, I guess, it's more of an artist-led, informal, a lot more freedom in terms of where everyone's going to go each day. So yeah, I'm not apprehensive. I'm looking forward to it, really, to be honest. But everything's under control. I'm quite happy.
Oh, that's great.
It's really impressive.
I thought Mayumi knocked it out of the park when she did that beautiful spiral with.
I think it was grass or
It was
reed.
with
or-
grass.
With reeds,
in the sand.
the grass reed, yeah. Oh, that was
That
stunning.
was my favourite piece.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
That's actually my favourite piece as well, because it actually was located on this little stretch of kind of grungy, kind of like a back of an estuary at the back of Bunman. It's kind of a place I drive by it 3 or 4 times a day, and I've never ever made a piece of art. Next thing she arrives in, and wham bam, 5,000 little reeds creating this big giant giant spiral. Absolutely stunning. Absolutely love what Mayumi has been working on the last year there since then. Absolutely phenomenal.
So you were saying about doing more. Sorry, Richard. You were saying, Sean. You were saying about doing more things at night. Is James Craig Page doing a fire can?
Yeah, we actually have 3 fire ceremonies, would you believe? So James, is certainly doing a cairn on the Friday night, I think it is. Looking at the schedule right now. Yeah, according to this, on the Friday, James is doing doing a fire cairn in the ocean in an undisclosed location as yet. The day before that, as soon as James and Lawrence arrive in from Scotland, we're having a gathering at the Art Hand here, and we're doing a little bit of a fire thing here with the artists, and one more fire ceremony is with Julie Malone, the Dingle Druid. Anyone that witnessed that last year, where
Lovely human being,
beautiful gathering
Yeah,
in the
great.
wind and the rain at Benvoy, and it was like just so beautiful despite the weather. So Julie is coming down on the Saturday, and we're doing the fire ceremony on the Sunday morning. Yeah, so at Ballydwan Beach this time. So so there's a lovely, like in terms of the schedule is quite loose. There will be like a bit of music. There will be a spoken word night. There will be a film night, because we do have the documentary. Everything that was filmed last year is being revealed on the Saturday. So we're having a film night on the Saturday with just the documentary. It's an hour-long, what do they call it? Montage. It's like a montage, very gentle montage of videos running through for an hour long. And Stuart is creating over in Los Angeles. He's recording a soundtrack for that right at the moment. We just about have it edited together, so that's going to be wonderful on the Saturday night. And apart from that, then it's a bit of chilling out, walking about in nature. Oh, we actually have a house music to yoga event. That's a bit new this year. So on the beach, it's interesting. It's breathing. It's Carla. She does a wonderful job. She does a lot of festivals and stuff with it. So it's kind of using your body and your breathing in terms of grounding yourself in the landscape through the medium of music and your own body as a musical instrument in terms of chanting or shouting or calling or making sounds. So I'm looking forward to that. So it's a happy-go-lucky eclectic mix, and every day then the public that are taking part will get little hints as to what to see next or where to go today. And the public are really kind of buying into that. Kind of, there is no formal program published before the event. So thankfully
That was so wonderful last year when you did that, Sean, because it actually gave us artists the permission without pressure to just be, and that's quite a rare thing. and it was a really lovely, like, joyful thing to go and explore the landscape. And I remember there was one day that Mark and I were in like that old castle, and I just got really kind of like, I don't like it here. I didn't feel good here. So I went off on a walk, and I found this little, like, after about an hour walking, I found this like tiny pool in a rock, and I just spent, I don't know, about 2 hours just playing around. And that was, I'll never forget that, because that was, for me, a real pivotal moment. I didn't have to always be creating with Mark. I didn't always have to produce something. So I just played, and that was very special, a real highlight for me of being at Talamh.
Yeah, I suppose, like, the reason I kind of designed it like this was literally because of the other festivals, something that would fit into our calendar. As Richard was saying earlier, like, we're kind of like a travelling roadshow circus, eclectic bunch of like land artists, liabilities, or whatever we are, that we get to meet up 2 or 3 or 4 times a year normally. And like, obviously in Texas, the Llano Earth Art Festival is a different structure altogether, where we all make our art, and then 2 weeks later the gates are opened and the public come in, and there's music and so on, and vendors, and it's more like a festival atmosphere. And then, of course, the European Land Art Festival in Scotland is different again, with more workshops and gatherings and public events. And then Land Sandstone in Yorkshire as well is kind of a combination of the two, maybe. So I kind of wanted something that when artists come to Ireland, that it's a longer time scale as well. It's like 10 days. Well, it was 10 days last year. It's 9 days this year. So some artists are only coming for 3 or 4 days. Some are coming for the full 9 days and even for longer. So that we have the freedom. And like, as you're saying there, Rebecca, that's important to me as well, that you can, like, I remember that piece you made in the little pool of water and just a little few petals and flowers around the edge of it, up the Anne Valley, that was. So that idea that you don't have to go to the places where everyone is gathering. You can do your own thing. You can go solo. You can spend 9 days on your own, hidden in the woods, and just come out at dinner time and nighttime or whatever. That's or you know, we're all staying in the one hostel and we're all eating at dinner time at 6:30 in the evenings. But apart from that, it's wherever you want to go and whatever you want to make or do.
How have you found getting the support from the authorities, Sean, and giving people that freedom?
It's interesting. Like, our funding is down this year on what we had last year, to be honest. So, like, this year I reached out for corporate sponsorship, and it's a difficult thing for a brand or a corporate entity to get behind, to be honest. So I have, like, the local council came on board, which is great. They came back on board. The Arts Office here, and then another organisation which I absolutely adore in Ireland called Creative Ireland. And Creative Ireland, it's an arts organisation, but it's very rooted in the ground. It's very public-based, community-based, collaborative-based. So they really support a lot of initiatives we do here at the Art Hand, and they've returned as the main sponsor again this year. As well as we have some support locally then from a couple of the theatre with Angela, the Gallagher Theatre, and of course the Copper Coast Geopark as well. But this region is designated by UNESCO as a geopark, so it's quite an amazing status as a landscape. So they've supported us financially as well. So I would love to think that one day the festivals would start to become sustainable, and that us artists can be properly paid to do them, and that we're not like literally having to pay for our own things, and that, you know, and hopefully one day that will come. But for now, it is what it is, and you know, maybe next year or whatever, funding and whatever comes around. I personally do think that it needs to be a brand or some kind of somebody that we can associate ourselves with that doesn't with our ethos, that fits with our ethos, that will come in and throw the extra few quid that it would take to make it more sustainable.
I think the difficulty there is getting that commitment over a long period of time, not just year on year, and you're having to fight every year. That's the grind, I think, that makes it quite
absolutely
hard.
And like funding schemes change. So last year there was a maximum limit of a certain amount of thousands of euros, and overnight that was changed. So the maximum I could get was already reduced before I could look for other sponsors. So, and like with what James has had to do up in Scotland, like it's being all of a sudden, as you say, suddenly badly hit that your main sponsor can't do it for whatever reason, things change. So it's the sporadic nature of it is sad, and for me as well, it's a social thing in terms of reconnecting with. We're all friends, and now that the event in Texas or in Scotland or in Yorkshire or in Ireland, there's more people joining, which is great. Like this year, I think I've got like 5 or 6 or maybe 7 new people, maybe more, maybe there's 10 that I haven't met before, that are coming at it from slightly different disciplines. So that for me is really great in terms of sustainability from a social perspective, in terms of growing the land art community or the land art family. So to be honest, I'm quite excited about that. Seeing how that, because if it was always just the same crew that went, bar a few couldn't make it, then that comes a bit stale. So it's always nice to have a few new people on board.
But I think that also presents its own problems in terms of, certainly what I've found in Yorkshire. You've only got a finite budget to pay people, and then the people wanting to come gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So even if you've got that ambition to pay people, you're never going to be able to pay everybody. And that's...
It just doesn't sit well.
It just doesn't sit.
Hard,
it's really hard. It's really hard to kind of work with. It's almost best you pay nobody, but you make sure everything's there for them when they get there, which is kind of what happens. It's how do you...
Yeah, if I paid all featured artists that were attending properly for their time, I probably would only be able to accommodate 5 or 6 people. 5 or 6 people would come in, they'd get a fee, they'd be looked after, and nobody else can come, only those 5 or 6 people, because that would be the budget gone. And for me, I understand the idea, consider like singer-songwriters or musicians, right? They get invited to play down the pub or the club, and their drinks lined up in front of them, and that's why you don't want. That's not a reasonable or sustainable way of paying an artist. So I completely get that, and I'm sure the same as every one of ye. Every week I get offered loads of voluntary opportunities. And yeah, I do a lot of voluntary things, and I contribute a lot to with my sand art or whatever to campaigns that really need it, that don't have a budget, and it's a bit of give and take. So it's not a sustainable model, the festival. So it would be great to think that there was a bit more joined up thinking in terms of support and sponsorship. But how you convince a brand to come on board is the trickiest bit. That's the thing. It fits with our ethos of the who we are and what we do. And I work with a lot of brands, but offer them a festival like this, it's very eclectic. They don't know who's gonna what's gonna happen, or it's that's the tricky part for me.
Sean, what do you think it offers people?
Well, I suppose to be selfish from the artist perspective, I do think from a profile point of view, it was Mark that invited me to Texas for the first time, and I think it was Richard that invited Mark to Texas for the first time, and so on. So it is good for your profile and your career when you kind of get brought into the land art family, and that you get brought onto the different events, and that your profile, you're doing projects. Like I returned to Texas this year, even though the festival wasn't on. I got to go back in March, and they covered my flight. I went in a voluntary capacity, but they covered my flight, and I created. I finished the community mosaic over there. So for me, that's a prestigious thing. For me, I'm working on one very very big mosaic at the moment in Ireland. But for me, for my profile to be able to say, here's an example of what I just did in Texas this year. That's really, from an artist's point of view, I think that's brilliant. From a public point of view, or even from an artist's point of view, some of us have different motives in terms of where we come from in our work. Sometimes it might just be as simple as the artist's own personal mental health or physical health as well, or getting out in nature. Or other artists might have an agenda about, creating something within the context of environmental art, that it's making a difference in terms of the tipping balance of what, in terms of climate change or convincing people to get out in nature. And like for me, I'm a bit of a balance of several different motives, I suppose. Like for me, if you represent nature through art, like one of the big things for me is if people see that or they participate in it, but even if they just see it online, for me, if they fall in love with what you're doing or the idea of being out in nature, then they'll protect nature because you protect what you love. So that for me is a little bit of a motive that I have in terms of that my work is it's positive work. I never represent negative things. I very rarely kind of fight campaigns that are an anti thing. But bringing positivity to people's day, that involves sticks and stones and leaves and sand and the beach and the tide and the sun and the sky or the clouds. That for me reminds people that outdoors is good. It's to be protected. So from an environmental point of view, I think it's kind of like it's like a kitten video. You know what I mean? You love the kit. Yeah, everybody loves kittens. There's the kitten, and it reinforces that idea of protecting the thing you love. So from an environmental point of view, that would be my motive. And then from a mental health point of view, we all have different viewpoints as to how we arrived at this. But like for me, it's like if I don't get to the beach at least once or twice a week to create something in nature, I will just be absolutely, I won't know what's wrong with me. I'll just have to go there because, just to sit outside, be in nature, even if you're not making something, and just to close your eyes, smell the air, listen with your ears what's going on, and happy days.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah.
Very well said. Very well said. Well, I think that's a perfect place to take a break and come back and talk all about how Sean got into this whole thing in the first place. I think that'll be really interesting. We've reversed our parts and we've talked about the festival coming up, and I think I'd like to hear a bit more about Sean and how he got into this thing and how he goes about his art. So join us again in a few short moments. And welcome back to part 2 of the Earth Art TV podcast. And in our normal anarchic fashion, we've reversed the parts. So we've talked about Sean's festival in the first half. But I really want to hear about Sean's story. I really want to hear how he got into this whole thing. I'm not actually sure I've ever heard it personally, let alone like a live recorded for public consumption version. I'm not sure I've ever actually asked you, Sean. So, Sean, how did this whole thing start? Did you used to be a postman or a maths teacher or something like that? There's going to be or I don't know, go girl. There was some hidden past that you picked up a rate one day and everything changed.
Well, I am Irish, so like I am prone to exaggeration and a little bit of myth every now and again. And I'm also doing really well in refraining from cursing, so I'm quite proud of myself this evening. But to be honest, like there was an epiphany moment, and I have answered this question a few times before. So every time I try and make it a little bit more interesting for myself, that there was a moment about 12 or 15 years ago. What is it now? 20... I normally remember the date, but I don't remember the date now. It's about 12 or 15 years ago. I was sitting on a cliff just down the road at Kilmurran Cove. We had just built this art studio, art school / art gallery now, the Art Hand. We just built there, and we just moved here with our 2 kids, Miranda and I. And I had come from a background in salvage, as in recycled materials and designing interiors using recycled materials. So my dad and I had a business called the Salvage Shop. So we used to bring in stuff from all around, mainly the UK and Ireland, and then we'd ship it out, like we'd transform it. So the idea of making something out of nothing was with me since I was very little. And my dad was an entrepreneur as well. So the idea of you get up in the morning and what am I going to make today? how am I going to make a living? How am I going to make a week's wages? How am I going to put food in the fridge? That's been with me since I was a kid. So, but anyway, that day, there I was, sitting on the cliff, and I was literally looking down on the sand, and I was going, we'd just moved here, we were just about to move in, and I was literally saying to myself, how am I going to make a living here? Where is my art going to bring me? And I'm looking down, and I used to have 3 acres full of bricks and beams and salvage, and I had a 10,000 square foot warehouse. Like I had up to 22 staff at one stage with mosaic and stained glass and furniture, and I was like the resident designer. So like I'm used to like thinking on my feet in terms of materials and what you could transform them into. But on this day, I was looking down on the beautiful beach, and I was going, there is nothing here. I can see nothing, absolutely nothing. All I can see is the sand. All I can see is the cliffs and the beautiful landscape. I can see nothing. And I was like asking the question, literally, it was like an epiphany moment. This horse was led from, a truck arrived, and a horse was taken out the back of the truck, and its trainer brought the horse onto the beach on a big long rope. And I'm looking down on this, and the trainer brought the horse onto the middle of the beach and led the horse around and around in circles, and they left, and I'm looking down with my mouth open in awe because it left this most amazing circle of the horse's hoofs, and in the centre was the footprints of the trainer. And for me, it was really like the question had been answered, the epiphany moment, ran home, grabbed a rake, came back and said, I wonder, does that work if you just turn the sand? And hey presto, I couldn't believe it does. And then I went home, went back home then after that, and typed in sand, making art on the beach sand, and I'm like, hey presto, hey, oh, there's other people. It's not like I didn't just invent it. There's land artists, there's sand artists. So it was like a really eye-opening thing for me. So so yeah, that was how it all began. And like I kind of hid away for a few years just playing with it myself, and like I've done lots of events and festivals. So I actually brought Andreas Amador and Sam Dugados to a festival in Tremor, 2 very fine sand artists, and they worked during that festival. And then it took me a while before I kind of got into the idea of being brave enough to walk around with a rake when there's 100 people on the beach or whatever. That you have to kind of get over that stigma, or just that social kind of, you know, allowing yourself the freedom to just, you know, be in the zone, doing something that's slightly different to normal beachgoers.
Wow.
Wow, so there was a target on the beach. There's concentric circles created by a horse and its trainer. It's like saying,
Little nod
this is
to
the
how
spot.
awesome horses are there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it really was, like, back then I used to document my work a lot more than I do nowadays. We all go through that phase of documenting our work, I guess, or whatever. So yeah, it was actually the 22nd of January, February, March, April, the 4th, that's April, and January, February, March. Yeah, so it was the 22nd of April, 2011. How many years ago is that? That's 13 years ago, this April gone. So yeah, and there's the, there's what the horse left behind. Oh, there it is. So yeah, I mean, it's not like the most amazing spectacle in the world, but it's definitely left huge contrast on the beach. And there's my daughter Matilda. And I dug that hole, of course, and then I started digging holes on the beach. And according to this archive, the following day I did the following. Then I returned with my rake, and then I started working with groups on the beach, and so on and so on. So yeah, it really was a moment. That horse, I've actually met the trainer since, and the horse as well. It really was like asking the question, like some of us artists would be kind of more analytical. I know Richard kind of delves into the psyche of his whole thinking in terms of the art and the creation process and what we go through. But that was a moment when I was literally asking a question, and I'm not like some hippy-tippy voodoo kind of believing in like, and your question shall be answered. I'm not a big believer in too much of that kind of stuff. But really, I was asking a question, and there it was right in front of me, and that led me on a journey meeting all you guys.
So how about the place that you now live. So you said you just moved there. You set up the art hand and the gallery and the studio and all of this. So where were you before? Were you living on the coast? Were you living inland? How much did that place kind of do something to you? Not just the event, but you said you were sat there looking over the beach. So that must have been infusing you with something as well.
Like I was born in London and spent my first 4 years there. Even my parents are both Irish, so it was kind of like when I was 4, I arrived back to Ireland with an English accent, and like back then in 1973, there wasn't even any black people in Ireland. So suddenly you learn as a young kid with an English accent, you learn in Ireland, you learn to you keep very quiet. So I became actually really, really insular. So as a kid growing up, I grew up on the coast in Ballinmacaw, right on the cliffs, right on the coast. Not half an hour from here, over near Dunmore East. So like for me growing up, I always like Miranda and we lived in a house in Mooncoin, which was like really, really well. It was not that far from the coast, but at the same time, it was never worked for me because I just like to be able to see the sea every day and seagulls and all the things that happen on the coast. So so we'd returned from Mooncoin, it took us 5 years to get planning permission to build here because it's such a scenically vulnerable area and it's a UNESCO geopark. So it was 4 years with the planning authorities, then it was Board Prinola, and then it was like building it finally. So it was like a big long journey. So actually, I remember
was there a lot of opposition to that?
Yeah, like 4 years, kind of like making sure ecologically everything was sound and scenically it was sound, and it was a massive, massive journey. Like I'd come from a background of designing interiors and buildings and hotels and clubs and venues and all kinds of things, so I knew how the planning system worked. But I'd never experienced being brought to the highest planning authority in Ireland is called Board Prinola. So yeah, there was like 30, 40, 50 objections in terms of making sure everything was right, which is absolutely brilliant. I mean, that's the way it worked, and thankfully we got permission in the end, and here we are.
It's very beautiful, your home. It's one of the most beautiful. It's beautiful, just amazing.
Thank you.
It is.
Thanks a million.
And it actually really sits beautifully in the landscape as well. You did such a great job.
Like this cottage here that's behind me in the studio, that's now, it used to be our art school. So the art hand was originally, like we did workshops with mosaic and stained glass and teaching kids and adult classes and all that, like on a daily and weekly basis. But now it's turned into our gallery. So Miranda, my wife, is a painter. So she paints amazing flowers on the surface of glass. So she's a seasonal painter. You hear of chefs who are seasonal chefs, but Miranda is actually a seasonal painter. So she paints the flowers that are seasonal. Like, so she's just finished an Oxeye Daisy series, and before that it was the beautiful Sea Pink, and the Sea Pink are now gone. So she's moved on to houseplants. I think it's a sign of the winter coming because her flowers are she's putting them into pots at the moment. So it's our gallery, and then with like events and festivals that we do with the land art. So it's a beautiful place to like it suits our lifestyle. That was the entire intention, but it's also sustainable in terms of being able to make a living and not have to go to an urban setting to work in a gallery or do shows or have big exhibitions or whatever, which I used to do and so on. Been there, done that, but now it's just like designing a kind of a lifestyle that suits Miranda and me and our two kids, because they're teenagers. One is a jockey and one is a surfer, so that involves fields that we have and horses that we have and the coast that we have and this beautiful island called Ireland that we have as well in terms of running around. So it's just like I've been all around the UK. I've been all around. I haven't travelled the world or anything like that. I've been a few places. I've been to Russia. I've been to America. I've been to Africa. I've been a few places like that. But for me, I absolutely just adore this island. And on both sides of my office, if I showed you, there's a map of Ireland there and there's a map of Ireland there. And that one over there has all my favourite spots around the coastline. So I've been diligently kind of like writing in every single bay and beach that I've ever worked on down through the years. It's kind of my, it's nice to just gaze over there and imagine the parts of the island that I haven't visited, like the sections of Donegal that I haven't been to yet. Really can't wait to get up there. So for me, when you get an inquiry comes in from a certain place, it's really kind of like you want to go there, you want to work with the people there, you want to work the landscape there. So that really excites me. Finding new places, meeting new people, really kind of getting familiar with the landscape. Like it's like when many of us return to Llano over in Texas, like each year or whatever. Like the flood has come, all the greenery is gone, all the poison ivy is gone, all the different wildlife, the flora, the fauna is changed. Mark's piece has survived or it hasn't, or the island has been washed away, and there's also that connection with the people, that you stay in touch with the people from each place. In the meantime, you make friends, and you know that it's Binky and Ron had a party the other day. It's 11's birthday. She was 7 yesterday. So, like, she's growing up. We're growing up. Laura inside of Possibilities. What's going on there? And then even, like, from a broader perspective, let's not talk about politics, but, what's happening in America that affects our friends or whatever, or how they're feeling about what's happening. And the same in Scotland and the same in Yorkshire when we go there, or when we meet up at different events or different things like that. So that for me, I don't know, what would you call that? With people who study human behaviour. There's a name on that, Richard. Anthropology. Yeah, I'm not an anthropologist, but I do love that kind of, like, people sometimes come to me and they sit down and tell me the weirdest stories about their life. Like, I had a woman there yesterday. She came into my office and she sat down there. And I can't tell you the story, what she told me, because it's like, for some reason she felt that she needed to tell me this story. And then I had a string of people that same day. And the third person that came to me that day to tell me this bizarre story, another bizarre story, I felt like I was living inside some cartoon. I couldn't understand. And here's Miranda. Say hello to Miranda. Yes, the dogs are fed, Miranda. All good. We're recording a podcast.
Hi, Miranda.
Say hello to the guys.
Hi, guys.
And there's Alfie just back from Donegal, handing me some money.
Hi, Alfie. Amazing surfer.
Oh, that's a bet. Yeah, I had a bet. I was
Sean
gambling
did the
with
washing
Alfie.
up, by the way, Miranda.
Yeah. I meant to tell you that we were doing a live podcast and it's all being recorded for the Earthar TV.
Oh, yeah, well.
Well, say hello there, anyways.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Miranda.
Hi.
That's Richard and Julia. You haven't met them yet.
No. How are you?
We'll do
Are you
soon.
coming to the festival?
Oh,
The lads are, yeah.
Yeah.
see you next
I'm
week.
trying to convince these
Yeah,
other
no,
four
I
to
know
come
they're
back.
not coming.
Yeah.
Next year.
Next year, Miranda.
Sometimes.
We'll be
We
there.
will.
Happy birthday,
hear you.
Miranda, for next week.
Happy birthday.
Next week.
Yeah,
Happy
she's been
birthday.
on the road. She left home at 4:00 this morning to
But
go
not
to.
quite. 6
Was it 6:00 this morning to go to Donegal,
to Clare.
to County Clare, Lahinch, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Alfie, who's been surfing all day under the tuition of
Llewellyn.
South African coach. So so that's like a day in the life of Miranda and Sean at the art end.
So I'm going.
See you in a
See
bit.
you all.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Sean. I'm going to bring in another question. So you're obviously a people person, you're entrepreneurial spirit, but if you had somebody gave you a fortnight or a week just to yourself, and it sounds like the coast nearby you is where you'd want to explore, how would you spend that week?
Oh, I like that question.
Or would you go mad within a day and a half of not speaking to anyone?
I like that question. I think actually nobody has ever asked me that question before. I love that question. Do you know what I'm really enjoying at the moment, right? So when Alfie's going surfing, or when I'm going to a project out the west or whatever, it could be like a 4 or 5 hour drive to the other side of the island. And what I'm really enjoying is I have a new van. Well, I got a new van last year. And it's got no windows in it. You have all the fancy camper vans, some of you that come to Talamh and so on, with all the windows and the kitchen and the sink and all the things. But I've got a van, it's like a builder's van. And I actually, when I go away on a project, I have really loved in the last while closing the door of the van on the inside, even during the day, and going in and sitting in the dark. And there's absolutely no light, and just being at one in the dark. So, like, there was an experiment a French guy did where he went down a cave for some ridiculous amount of days. I don't know, was it 60 days? He lived down in a dark cave, and he he had a wire going down to him with a earpiece where every day he used to check in and estimate how long it was that time 24 hours had passed. And he had estimated something like that he'd been down underground for 40 days, whereas in fact he'd been down there for 67. It was an experiment in how time passes and how relative people are in terms of daytime and nighttime and how dawn and dark. So I think I'd probably do a human experiment, lock myself in a dark room for about 10 days.
Great answer. Well, what I'm trying to tease out of you. So as you talked about your the spark of the horse on the beach creating this circle and the trainer running the horse round and that whole thing, your thing there was, what's my next angle from an entrepreneurial spirit point of view to make a living, so where's the is that where your artist spirit comes? You were interested in time and space and exploring those other things. Where does that intersect with your empire building, your creation of your family's life and all of that stuff? Where does your artist spirit, what is it that you're trying to find out about yourself and the world?
Yeah, so I suppose I left school when I was 16, never went to college or anything like that. And I've been studying ever since I was 16, literally. I actually did my leaving cert by mistake because when I left, they thought I think I was registered as being 5 years old instead of 4 years old or something like this. So they thought I was older. And then coming over from England, the school things. Anyway, most people were 18 when they left school. I was 16. And my entrepreneurial spirit comes from my dad, right? Hands down. So making a living for your family is like, was always his priority in terms of making sure that ends meet and so on. So for me, like as an artist, like in my 20s, and I was making stained glass and mosaic and starting kind of the idea of somebody comes into your studio and they say, I've got this thing. It could be like a fan light over a door, or I've got this coffee table, or I've got this. I saw what you did for Mavis, and I wonder, could you do something? So they always like what they saw. But my job as a designer back then, like designing furniture and interiors, was always like to move that boundary to something that I wanted to make, but that kind of led on from the last thing. So pushing the boundary and getting people to trust you in terms of commissioning something, that was the next step. So if I pull down my archive of all the stained glass I made, it was based on like every next one was always something that I wanted to build, and just trying to convince somebody that had seen something previous to trust me enough, to pay me enough money to make a living, to make the thing that I really wanted to do. So it's kind of a slightly selfish kind of a thing, getting people to pay me as a designer and then to pay me as an artist to make the things I want to do that fulfills their need as well as my need, and without selling my soul to the devil while doing it. So I do turn down these days. I have the I get to turn down a lot of things that I don't take on. I don't take on any greenwashing campaigns with big brands. I've turned down a good few of those recently. But I always enjoy the conversation with the big brands that want to do greenwashing campaigns. I go for all the Zoom calls, and I go for as far up the chain as I can with the marketing executives until I turn it down, because I like getting inside the psyche of the brands and the companies and the marketing people as well, and the PR people, of why they think it's okay to treat members of the public with greenwashing campaigns like this, and then I turn it down last minute. So yeah, it's sometimes when. Oh yeah, 100%.
Can you name some of the companies?
No, I can't. It wouldn't be fair. That'd be only like advertising to them. I'll tell you off air. A couple I turned down recently. But
can we play a game of guessing?
No, it wouldn't be fair for the podcast.
Be here a while.
Yeah. But sometimes when you've had a really bad month, right, and like some big brand, like it's very difficult when you're approached by a big brand and they're kind of trying to convince you that it's an ecological, environmental campaign, and you're kind of like, kind of thinking that you could buy into it. No, it's name your price kind of a fee, whatever. Bring your whole team around you. It's kind of very tough to turn those ones down. But I'm afraid, like, each of us have our own integrity in terms of the art that we make, and for me, it wouldn't do my art any justice to suddenly be greenwashing myself and greenwashing a brand.
No, definitely not. I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm kind of, I am the host of this podcast in inverted commas. Some of these questions I'm asking you, I'm interested because I wonder if we're in the same room for too long. There'll be some kind of antimatter matter explosion going on because I'm the least entrepreneurial. People say to me, "Why don't you make one of these?" I don't make stuff to sell. It just my art just happens, and it's all that kind of thing. Well, you're the other end, absolutely the other end of that. And but I reckon there's some in the centre of both things. There's a way it has to be done, and it's always that way. And it just happens to be ours are completely different, but they always have to be done that way. So I'm your answers to my questions there was I was looking at, okay, where's the bit of standing there at 3 a.m. with the lightning and your hair on end and all of that, and you're finding that locked in a van in the pitch dark, wondering how much time's gone past.
Well, even at 3 a.m. back in the days when my dad had the salvage shop, right? When my dad and I had the salvage shop, right? So 3 a.m. you mentioned, right? If you get a phone call at 3 a.m. when we had the salvage shop, it meant that you had to rush out and that the fire brigade were there and the building was on fire, right? So at 3 a.m. when you rush out, right, and the building is on fire, and you got to think, you're going to have, if you had 22 staff, right, you're going to think, well, 12 of them are going to be laid off tomorrow unless we can figure a way of saving the machine or salvaging what we can to get that job done to pay the wages that week, right? So that's how I grew up. It's you fight the fire to pay the bills, to pay the staff, and it's possible that we mightn't have succeeded that week. We might have had to lay off 12 people, so you've got 10 people, which is the core group, and then you're going to have to build again. And then a month later, when everything's going rosy, that was the point when I could kind of say, how can I be a bit selfish here about, I like making funky furniture or crazy stuff, or imagine if you put this together, or some of the commissions I was taking, like they were coming to me as an eccentric artist making this mad stuff and shipping it to like 4th floor apartments in Paris or something like that. I could like make mad things, put them on fire, put them out and sand them off and sandblast them and ship them to Paris, and people were paying me. So that's what I wanted to be doing. So then that was how it went, and that's how I'm here.
Brilliant. I think that's fantastic. Well, I think that is a perfect place to probably end this podcast because I feel inspired that I'm never, ever going to be able to achieve anything even slightly like that. I certainly get the impression that your family at home now, because your bandwidth seems to have shrunk because you've gone very pixelated. So somebody's downloading a huge 4K video for them to watch. That's what it looks like to me. Well, I'd just like to say thank you, Sean, for coming on the podcast and telling us all about your life and your inspiration, and for putting together this fantastic festival that we're yet to visit next week, which we're really amazingly looking forward to. I feel just completely ready to come now and come out of my my self-imposed stupor of not quite knowing what's happening, and to be welcomed into your world for 9 days of, I don't know, sitting in a van with the door shut, or being out on the beach at 3 a.m, or setting fire to somebody's yard of stuff. I don't know. We shall see.
That sounds great. Sean, can you just remind us of the dates of Talamh?
Yeah, so it kicks off next Monday, which is the 16th of September, and it runs for 9 full days and ends on the following Tuesday, the 24th. Of September 2024.
Right, and you got your film debut at the Corcoran Theatre.
That's a very good effort, Mark. Very good. The Corcoran Theatre, Angela Mulcahy's theatre, is the Corcoran. Yeah, on the Saturday. That's the 21st, I believe. The Saturday night. Really can't. I know yourself and Rebecca won't be there to see the first, and James and Caroline won't be there. You're strongly featured, the 4 of you in it. So I'm sure we'll send you across a link that you can stream it or whatever. Or something
Yes,
like
please.
that.
That would be nice.
That would be lovely.
Thank you. We would be there, but we're burning a Viking longship.
Well, there you go. Has to be done.
Yeah.
Somebody's got
Great to see you, Sean.
And
Thank you.
We'll definitely add some links to the podcast notes about if you're international listeners who can't be there in person to see the art that's being made, to have a look on the Facebook page and on Instagram and various places to see what everybody gets.
Lovely. Thanks a million, guys.
Thank you.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thanks.
So I guess we'll try and do a few more episodes of this podcast at some point. That we always have that intention, but I've really enjoyed talking to everybody tonight, and thank you, Sean, for joining us. It's been an absolute blast. So
I'm really looking forward to
I
seeing.
remember how to sign this thing
I'm looking
off.
forward to seeing all the amazing artworks that are going to be created by artists around Europe and the world this autumn. It's the time of the leaves are dropping. I'm looking forward to James. I'm sure you'll be making some amazing artworks out of leaves, which is one of your specialities.
Trying.
The forecast looks pretty nice as well. It looks like it's going to be fairly decent weather, which is good.
And if we can't go to Talamh,
Thanks for listening.
we should just go and do a surprise visit to the Brunts.
We should go to Yorkshire.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're coming to Yorkshire.
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see
That'd
you
be
very
lovely.
soon.
excellent. I like that.
Right, well, thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll look forward to bringing you the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks a million.